All right, welcome back to another episode of Tea Time with Mother and Crone. We're going to touch on some interesting subjects this time. So, this is going to be one of those pie in the sky ones, so we'll see where it goes. But before we head on into it, we're going to do our usual. My Linda is going to lead us in what's in our cups tonight.
Hello. So tonight I am drinking my kava kava stress tea again because it's so yummy. We talked about that last week. But for this week, I am talking about lemongrass. And lemongrass, it kind of reminded me of summer. I was thinking about lemonade. Don't try to figure out my brain because I don't know where I was going with it, but I was just like, hmm. Um, Lemongrass is actually good for a lot of different things. It's a lot of people don't know it's actually a good insect repellent. You can use it if you grow it like in your garden. It's one of those big shrubs. You'd be familiar with it if you saw it, but it's good for mosquitoes, which in Florida we really need it.
Yeah,
And
we have the ones that pick you up and carry you from place to place.
basically. So it's really good for all of that. Um, and you can make different sprays. You can do different things like that. If you want to do sprays, you can do little citronella type candles with lemongrass in it and do oils and things like that. So that was interesting. Um, Now, as far as the health benefits, there's actually quite a few medicinal benefits. And what's really interesting is the Chinese have been using it for, of course, hundreds of years for different medicinal things. And you can also cook with it.
Oh,
The stalks are used for fragrance and they're inedible, but you can use it in like stir fries and curry. It's used in soups for like flavorings. And then I think that was the stalks. And then the ends you can use in like teas and you can use in soups and things like that. Um, so it's good to relieve. Several studies have proven how lemongrass tea can help relieve abdominal issues like stomach cramps and pain, blood pressure. So I'm going to start shoveling it down Mike's throat. um, Cough, cold, and even exhaustion. So I'm going to start shoveling it down my throat as well. um, just kidding. Probably not, but jokes aside. Lemongrass essential oil is particularly used to treat muscle pain um, upon inhalation, which I thought was interesting. The plant is also used in foods and beverages as a flavoring, just as we had discussed. There's also several other ways the plant is utilized, but we're going to go over some of the health benefits. So, it aids in weight loss because it has the ability to lower blood sugar. So it's a good supplemental to also treat diabetes, which so another reason I'm going to give it to Mike. It also the tea benefits also include immunity against hypertension and cancer as well, and it also boosts the health of your skin and hair.
oh,
Um, yeah.
that's
So
different.
yeah, and the way that it helps, it elaborates a little bit more on the weight loss. So the tea also it helps with weight loss because it fills you up, preventing you from overeating. Sipping it during the day can also, it just repeats itself, overeating. The tea contains polyphenols that are found to increase energy expenditure and fat oxidation, thereby contributing to weight loss. It can also be used for detox, and this kickstarts your metabolism, therefore aiding in weight loss. And since lemongrass tea is a natural diuretic, drinking enough of it can help you drop some water weight. So,
That's really, I mean, my boss, he lived in Africa for quite some time, and his mother had planted lemongrass around their property. And
mhm.
we bought a warehouse about a year ago, and he keeps telling me, he's going to put raised gardens in. And so we were talking about the herbs we were going to plant, rosemary and stuff. And he said, "Well, if you plant lemongrass," he said, "I'll make lemongrass tea." We thought he was joking because he was telling us how good it tastes. Not he
Yeah.
doesn't know any of this. I can't wait to go in tomorrow and say, "Hey, dude, you really need to start doing
Yeah.
this.
Do it right now.
Do it
I
now
know.
so we can have some." That's interesting. I didn't realize it had all those health benefits. I
I know.
I
I
knew
thought
it was
that
good
was,
for cooking, but
yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then it just goes a little bit in more detail. So I'm basically just going to go into a little bit more specifics about like the blood pressure and the diabetes because it goes into a little bit more detail, kind of like it did for the weight loss. But for the diabetes, lemongrass tea, it shows can lower blood sugar levels. Consult your doctor, of course, if you're already on diabetes medication. We all
mhm.
know. Studies shown that it can improve fasting blood glucose levels, which, oh my gosh, I'm so going to ask his doctor about this because his fasting, when he checks in the morning, we are having a hard time getting down. So, and
Yeah.
he's fine. Like his average has been good throughout the day, but that we're trying to get that fasting one down in the morning and we're having such a hard time. So, I'm going to ask about this lemongrass. Um, it also, again, works as a detox, so it can purify your pancreas and improve its functionality.
Which
Which,
helps with diabetes.
right, because it produces insulin. Um, so, studies have dubbed lemongrass as a traditional remedy for hypertension. Another study conducted in 2012 found that intake of lemongrass tea can cause a moderate drop in blood pressure levels. Um, Results that are much better when compared to green tea intake, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, because green tea is touted as,
Yeah,
the cure all.
yeah. And then it says, of course, individuals with heart problems use lemongrass tea with caution for the very same reason. But I thought that was interesting because I was like, wow, over green tea, like,
Yeah, because green
okay,
tea was
watch
supposed to
out,
be.
lemongrass.
Now,
It's
did
like,
they tell you what kind of tea to mix it with, like green, white, or black?
no, it didn't. It didn't specify that. It didn't specify. I don't know that that matters because I think you're still getting the benefit or you just steep the lemongrass in boiling water.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like if you're going to make green tea
Hmm.
and you put the lemongrass in the green tea on top of the green tea, that will probably
It
just give
double
you
the
a,
benefit.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, not
the
yeah, but give you
booster.
a more beneficial
Yeah, I would
drink
think
than
so.
just in like black tea.
Yeah, I would think so. Absolutely.
You
Um,
make that during the summertime, you could suck that down all day long. Because
Heck yeah,
I know in the summer I go through tea.
lemongrass iced tea.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And mix
Um,
it with honey.
Yes. And it says it helps fight cancer. Lab studies have shown that lemongrass extract can inhibit the early phases of cancer, especially that of the liver. One compound in lemongrass called citrul um, was found to induce cell death in the case of breast cancer. Studies have also shown how lemongrass extracts can be a non toxic alternative to cancer treatments. Some sources say that lemongrass also helps treat prostate cancer, although concrete research is lacking. It improves digestive health. It works well as an alternative remedy for stomach cramping, upset stomach, and other digestive issues. Studies have shown that lemongrass can be effective in treating gastric ulcers. Um, Lemongrass essential oil can also help protect the stomach lining from aspirin.
Oh, wow. So you take aspirin, a
Yeah,
little aspirin every day if you have.
I my brain is going like exploding because now Mike has to take an aspirin every single day, and like the highest dose there is of aspirin every
Oh,
single.
that'll tear his stomach up quick.
I know.
You
Oh
know,
my god,
I'm just thinking if you made
I'm so excited about
a
lemongrass now.
gallon of lemongrass tea
Yeah,
and just everybody drank that instead of like regular tea in your
I
iced
know,
tea in your house, just,
and it's
it's amazing how moms can change a diet.
I know. Well, and for those of you that don't know, regular use of aspirin can deteriorate the stomach lining, and cause gastric ulcers.
Yes.
And I can't take NSAIDs myself because I've had a stomach surgery. So I cannot take NSAIDs.
Well, any prolonged period of time that you're taking those NSAIDs or
Mhm.
Celebrex or aspirin or any of that stuff, it will just it tears your stomach up and also tears your esophagus up.
Esophagus, yeah.
And that's where you go into throat cancer.
Yeah. It also enhances kidney function, so it works as a good detox. Again, bringing it brings up detox a lot, which we could all use every now and again. It can help cleanse the kidneys as well. This might invariably improve their functioning. It promotes deep sleep.
Oh, girl, I think I'm going to go out and get me some lemongrass.
I know, right? We just need to I'm excited.
I'm
It
really now I got to jump at my boss because
I
um,
know. Tell him I want like a haystack of lemongrass when he's done.
I'm like, we need to
I
go
want to
get Eddie.
I want a hay bale of lemongrass. A bale of lemongrass. It says it has a calming effect which can aid deep sleep. It can also help relieve insomnia and irritability. Well, shit, I need that. I
Well,
am
girl,
irritable
I'm chronic
as a
insomnia.
mofo.
I mean, I take all this medication to go to sleep. I really do because
Yeah,
I don't
me
sleep.
too. Me too.
So if
And
I
this
could
it says this is especially true with lemongrass oil.
oil,
So you could probably put lemongrass oil in a bath before a night. You could probably do it
put it in your face soap before you go
in
to
your
sleep.
yep, or you can do it in a mist and spray your pillows. You can do it if you dilute it. I know for like peppermint oil, I'll dilute it a little bit with like coconut oil or something and put it on my temples when I have a headache. So
Oh yeah,
maybe you can do the same for the lemongrass and promote the sleep that way, like inhale it maybe,
yeah.
like
I'm thinking
aromatherapy wise.
his butt needs to get out there and get those raised
Yeah,
gardens so we can get that lemongrass in.
I know, right? It also treats yeast infections. I mean, this is like
Really?
yeah.
How do you treat the yeast infections?
So it says lemongrass oil, again, oil, contains the citral and limonene. Limonene is also found in cannabis. It's one of the terpenes that is found in cannabis. It's terpenes, as we said in a previous episode, is found in all plants. It's part of the plant. But limonene, you might have heard us talk. It's a lemon. Two important compounds that prevent the growth of bacteria and fungi. The oil possesses antibiotic like effects which help treat yeast infections. One Brazilian study talks about the antifungal activity of lemongrass and how it can help treat candida. Let me see if it gives a link here.
I'm interested in that because yeast infections, as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
and in the
Common.
heat, because we live in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
yeast infections are very easy to get with us heavier women.
Yeah.
And you get them very easily in the folds of your skin, is basically what it is. It's a perfect place. And
Right.
I know Gold Bond powder works miracles, but
Right.
um, I hate going into work smelling like Gold Bond powder. It's like it's that old age smell. I just can't do it. But yeah, a little bit of lemon spritz. If you broke that down, if you did like a 1 to 3 with a nice coconut
Yeah, it says an
oil.
oil, so I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
So
if
I
you did a
don't know.
1 to 3, if you break it down to where you're making almost like a perfume that you can rub on, if you rubbed
Yeah.
it on, it would
Mhm.
take
Yeah.
care of the issue.
And I'm sure you could, when I click on the source, it just takes me to like a medical journal that's like 1,000 pages, so I'm not going through
Yeah,
that.
but I mean,
You
there's
can Google it for sure.
Google it, you can
Lemongrass
find that
plus sign yeast infections.
section.
You'll
Yeah,
get.
but I mean, that
I
is,
know.
oh my
It's
God, why don't we have it in every garden?
I know. It also reduces anxiety.
Ooh,
Same calming effects of lemongrass play a role here too. Another Brazilian study spoke of how the aroma of lemongrass could be used to reduce anxiety. So same thing we were saying, an oil, a
Smell.
mist. You can
Hmm.
do the oil and do like your wax warmer. I mean, you could do so many different things.
Or your things
The
that go on
oil,
the light bulbs,
yeah,
the
exactly.
little
It can
terracotta.
It can treat headaches. Again, lemongrass tea found to treat headaches in ways similar to that of aspirin. And isn't that crazy? So it treats headaches in ways that aspirin does, while also help helping prevent injury to your stomach, which aspirin would
And
cause.
calms you down when you're,
Right.
because a lot of times your headaches are from stress.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you're calming down on top of, it's not like taking an aspirin, and aspirin does not calm you down. All it does is
Right.
get rid of the pain, and you still have the problem. So you still have the
Exactly.
headache.
So it says the tea inhibits the clumping of human blood platelets, thereby treating headaches. This property can be attributed to eugenol, a specific extract found in lemongrass. Lemongrass tea can also combat dehydration. And this
Oh,
can
gosh, we need that in Florida, don't we?
I know. And of course, dehydration can help combat headaches too because dehydration causes headaches. So,
Oh, yeah.
therefore, since it helps with dehydration, it will also in turn help with the headaches. Um, Making lemongrass tea a part of your overall fluid intake is a good idea, is what it suggests. And I'm just going to quickly go over some more of these because I also want to talk about the magical before we get on our main topic here. But it also heals a sore throat because of its antibacterial and anti
Mm.
inflammatory properties. It can decongest your respiratory system. It's also helps stimulate lymph drainage. It treats cough, colds, and allergies. And it might enhance immunity, it says, improve skin health, which we touched on a little bit. It says the essential oil tones your skin and makes it radiant.
Ooh.
So we talked about like self care, pamper. You want to make a little face mask.
Yeah.
Um, and then it says again the lemongrass tea. It's antiseptic and astringent properties. You can drink the tea or add the essential oil to your shampoos and soaps. And the tea can also sterilize your pores and strengthen your tissues. The citral and lemongrass can also help prevent skin cancer.
Oh, girl, I need that like now.
I know. Um, Lemongrass can also treat infections like folliculitis and cellulitis, which are caused by bacteria. And
Gotcha.
being antifungal, the tea can also help treat fungal infections on the skin. And we also talked
Yeah,
about,
acne, foot.
yeah. And the last thing it talks about is hair health. So it might strengthen drinking lemongrass tea might strengthen your hair follicles, thereby preventing hair loss. Um, the essential oil can really do wonders for dandruff. And applying the oil, it said a study showed in a matter of 7 days, it was really effective. It can be effective when used daily. You can add a few drops of oil to your shampoo and conditioner. And um, and that's pretty much it on the health. I mean, and then it gives you like a little thing here to make lemongrass tea. It says 4 cups of water, 2 cups of chopped lemongrass stalks, and you can do this particular recipe calls for a quarter cup of sugar. And then you just, in a medium saucepan, boil water over high heat, add the lemongrass stalks, boil for 5 minutes, and you reduce the heat to low, simmer for 5 minutes, and then you strain the liquid, separate the stalks, stir the sugar, and you can serve it warm or chilled. So there's your little recipe. Um,
That is fascinating because
I
all of
know,
the health benefits are, and my
and I
boss
know I was talking
suggested.
forever, but I know I was talking forever, but I had to.
No,
I,
no, because it's really
great.
great because like my boss is, he's been having headaches and stress, work, everything going on. And he's been talking about making it. He says, "Oh, I can make the best lemongrass tea in the world." You know, we're hearing this.
You tell
I'm
him, and
gonna have
then
to
you
hike out
send.
to the store and get me some lemongrass, and he's gonna make some.
Well, and then I just spouted off recipes. So you guys go get you some lemongrass, and all you need is 2 cups to make you some tea.
Now, there's something they didn't tell you in there, and this is crazy, but it works. Ants follow a trail that's chemically left behind them. That's how all the ants know where your sugar's at. The first
Mhm.
one finds it, and all the rest find it.
Yeah.
I had cats for a long time, and you know, with cats, you can't spray anything because they
Right.
either lick it or they get it on them and they lick it. So, but
Right.
I used to use essential oils. I used bergamot and I used lemongrass
Hmm.
around. I had a windowsill where they used to come in,
Hmm.
and that scatters the scent for them. It screws up their senses so they can't
Right.
find that trail. But, and we moved into this place in March, in February, I moved in, and April,
Hmm.
I noticed some of these little teeny tiny, I don't know what you call them up here, down here, but
They're called ghost ants.
we call them piss ants.
Yeah, they're
So
called ghost ants.
they're so tiny you can barely see them,
They're yeah.
and I don't know, I must have spilled something and there was like a gazillion of them. So
Hmm.
I wiped everything down. The next day they were back again. So I went, I see, kind of sort of see where they're coming from. So I just took the lemongrass oil on my finger. Don't do that at home, please.
Yeah, no, don't do
I mess with essential oils. I know what I can put on me. There's some I can't touch at all, and some I know I can. So I put a little line, and we
that.
haven't seen them since.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it made the kitchen smell really good because it smelled like lemons.
Yeah. Now, speaking of, you do want to be careful because when I was researching, lemongrass is one of the things that came up as toxic to cats and dogs.
Right. But if you use just a little bit,
Yeah, if you put it like out of reach, just being aware. If you do plant it or put it in a garden, just be aware of that.
just
It
a one
is,
or two on it.
yeah. So just putting that out there. I was so afraid I was going to forget to say that. I want to say that
Yes,
because,
please do.
pagans love their animals.
We serve our
So,
fur babies. But I
yes.
do know with the essential oil, when I put it on the windowsill, the cats, it was such a strong, to them,
Mhm.
such a
Right,
strong odor that they would not go near it. But it wasn't anything that would really hurt them if they got a little bit on their paw and licked it off.
right, right. Yeah.
Whereas if you spray the ant killer,
Yeah, yeah.
and the cats lick that, then you can end up with a very sick cat.
Right, right. Ooh, excuse me, goodness.
Now,
Ooh,
do
had
we
a day.
have any magical properties? It's got so many medicinal. Do we have any
Yes,
magical?
we do. I'm sorry, I had to get a yawn out. Yes. So, one of the things, so let me go to the magical, and I'm sorry, I know I told you I was doing my iPad trying to be, more techie these days.
Oh,
So, lemongrass is a masculine plant.
really?
Yes, it is the element of air
I can see that. Fragrant.
and ruled by Mercury.
Really? That
Yeah,
I would
and
have never guessed.
and is and then in parentheses for the element it has fire. That probably has something to do with astrology. I only know that my zodiac is Aquarius, my birth month. I have to take Lord Don's astrology classes, and I haven't cracked up in my second degree. I haven't got there yet in my second degree, so I have no idea the houses. When people start talking about houses and moon signs and sun signs, I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah,
hmm
cool. Great.
sure, okay.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm like February 1st, Aquarius. That's all I
I'll
know.
tell you. You do what I did. You meet up with an astrologer and you hang on to him. I've
Right.
known Alan for like 20 years or so.
I know. I'm like, I gotta
I
get with
ask him.
Alan. And then I'm like, oh, I need my birth certificate because I don't remember my time of birth. And apparently that's pretty important.
That's extremely important. But my
Hmm.
friend Alan in Baltimore does wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work. But he really, really works on them. I mean, like you get a book when he's
Yeah.
done, and I'm going like,
I know. I want it done, and it's only like $20 to get. I think I lost. It's somewhere. It's in a box. I just have to.
Um, he charges a little bit more, but you really get
No, I'm saying for my birth
uh,
certificate
your birth
because
certificate. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but it's in
necessary.
a box. I don't want to buy it because as soon as I get a copy, I'll find it.
You'll find it. I always do.
Because I still haven't unpacked every single thing since we moved. But so yeah, and then for the planet it says Mercury, but then in parentheses it says Sun. So again, I'm sure that has something to do
The
with
fire sign
astrology.
got a sun in
So
its rising house.
yeah, so whatever. You good. I'm glad you understand. And I'm sure
I
some
don't.
people
I just hung around Alan so long. I picked up
okay.
stuff.
Good. And I'm sure our audience will understand. Um so it's good for clairvoyance,
Mm.
contacting other planes, divination, fidelity, honesty, psychic development. So, again, if you have it with third eye, and actually, I think it might have been in our third eye tea.
I
Oh,
was trying to.
I'm
It,
gonna
it
go
was
back
a lemon taste or smell
or
when we
like
were milking
lemon
it.
bombers. I'm gonna go. I'm
I'll
gonna
have to
go.
look at my third eye's over there. I'll have to. Not my
So,
third.
so
My third eye tea is over there.
yeah,
My third eye's over
my
there.
third eye. Come back, third eye. Oh my gosh, stop.
Oh my. Mm.
Um, don't say funny things. Psychic development and growth, strength. Now it says repel snakes. I don't like that so much. I
Uh,
mean, if it's like physically and you have like a poisonous snake,
Physically,
sure.
it does because that's what he told me. The reason that they planted it in Africa, he lived in the Gambia in West Africa, and it was to help keep the snakes down because they had a
So
lot.
that's good, I guess. But I've
Well,
really been working with snake energy lately. I have to tell you,
it's to
some
keep
amazing things have come to me recently.
the snake population away from you.
Yeah.
You don't need
So
it like
I get it.
in your house.
Literal snakes. Okay, I get
Yeah,
it.
actual, like whatever they have over there. Um, because
Well, that's like here we have six different kinds of poisonous snakes in Florida alone.
yeah, well, we got little black ones at work that are underneath the porch, and he was joking that when he plants it, they won't be there anymore because it
Yeah,
repels them. What it does is it moves them to where it's not so populated, so they don't get hurt. And if
yeah,
you look at it that way, rather than repelling it, we're just keeping them safer because we're
yeah.
moving them
It's
away
a
from
good way
where
to
we're
look at
at. Right,
it.
because it's right by my door, and I think it's cool because I go out and I talk to them. But
Oh, I do too. I There was a snake at my job like a couple years ago, and he was just like a garter snake, and I was just like, he was in like a little crack between the concrete, and I was just like, hey, and I was just like hanging
well,
out,
we have a 4 foot and a
and I took
two
a
foot.
picture of him.
I'll have to take pictures next time because we have a 4 foot and a 2 foot that live in our little area, and you'll see them come out. And because one of the guys was like, "Oh my God, there's a snake out there," and he slams the door, and I was like, "Ooh!" And I'm opening the door, and he's like,
That's
"What
how
are you
I am.
doing?"
I'm like, where?
I'm like, "It's not gonna come in, and if it does, I'll pick it up and take it out." And he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, you touch him?" And I'm like, "Oh, go away." And
I
I was talking to it, and then I took my boss's dog out to do her thing, and she found the little 2 foot one, and she was so excited because she gets excited over that and geckos. Oh, she loves geckos.
um
And I was like, "Oh, look at the little snake!" And I'm talking to it, and my boss comes out and says, "What are you talking? Who are you talking to?" I said, "The snake that's by your foot."
Oh, I told you I have a bumblebee friend, so that visits me.
Hey,
And
he's
then
got.
finally, he was coming around all the time, and I felt so bad. I was like, okay, I'm going to get you some hanging plants that are pollinator.
Yes.
And I finally got them, and I haven't seen him. And I'm like, WTF, bee friend, where are you?
Don't forget to put out a little dish of water with marbles in it so they can drink because they'll
Yes.
sit on the marbles and
Yep.
they'll be able to drink without getting soaked.
Getting drowned, yeah.
Mhm.
So repel snakes. It's also good for lust. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Is that a good thing to drink at work? Well,
And psychic powers.
I really like the psychic power part on that because
Yeah,
lemongrass is a tea I know I can drink because I love lemon in my iced tea. That
yeah,
to me
yeah.
what makes iced tea. And to have that, it just makes it like that much better.
Well, yeah, and then I mean it goes along with, it says contacting other planes, clairvoyance, psychic development and
That's
growth. It all goes along with
all
it.
goes
So,
together hand in hand. So that sounds like, I mean, I can't believe it does all that stuff. I have got to go into work and tell my boss this because he literally is going through some stuff, and I know he's a little stressed, and you know,
right.
you kind of, he's a lot younger than I am, so I'm kind of like momming him, mothering him, which I probably shouldn't do, but I do. But even if we just make a couple pictures to have here at home and at work,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a
Yeah.
great thing.
And
So
then the
I'm going to have
other
to buy
thing,
some.
yeah, a crafting thing that you can do, a magical craft you can do. It says you can use lemongrass as a magical floor sweep to rid your home of negative vibes.
Ooh, can you imagine your floor after you do that?
Ooh, yeah.
I have
If
that.
you do like a little bit of smudgy smudgy and a little bit of sweepy sweepy,
Well, that's
ooh,
what I'm thinking. I have like concrete floors that have those specks in it. What's it called? Trap, Trapezine?
girl, I don't know. I
I
know
don't
what
know.
you're talking about, but
But you know what I'm talking about. They're
I know what you're talking about.
concrete and they're really pretty and they got different colors in it.
Mhm.
I love it because it keeps the house so cool because it's
It does. Yeah.
and I've done different sweeps through here,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking now that might be a heck of a good sweep to do because I can just imagine that lemony.
Yep.
Lemon has a clean smell to it.
It
It just
does. That's why it's in all the cleaning stuff.
yeah, and it's even the Clorox wipes now come in lemon scent,
Yep, Mr. Clean.
and it's just
Pine Sol.
yeah, really they all do, and it's just such a clean. That's probably why they're telling you it's such a relaxing because when you're okay, this is a woman thing, I know. When your house smells clean, it's
Hmm.
comforting because it
Oh,
smells.
my kid's the same way. Like when we use the carpet fresh powder stuff, and we vacuum, even stuff like that. It's like, or I don't feel like crumbs that the kids put on the floor, on my feet, bare feet, and just stuff like that. It's like, it feels so nice, or it smells good, or like a fresh incense, and or it feels
It
good.
does.
It's
It
the
has
energy.
that euphoric feeling to
That's
it.
why that's why we've talked about, the spring cleaning being important because you get rid of that clutter. It does help with that emotional aspect. It does help with that decluttering of the mind as well. It's all
Mhm.
connected.
Gets rid
So,
of baggage both places.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Now it says you can also burn or carry a satchel of lemongrass when you are looking to remove or get through obstacles in your life.
Even just carrying that smells good. I mean, just
Yeah,
imagine carrying that lemon scent with you.
I
Just,
know.
you know.
And it says lemongrass is said to bring luck and ward off evil for those who are around it.
Oh,
With
well,
high
it's definitely getting planted in my yard.
I know. With high spiritual vibrations and its cleansing properties, lemongrass has become an important ingredient with any spells or magic concerning road opening and path renewal.
Wow, path renewal.
I know.
I'm thinking lustration, October. We get
Hmm.
us some lemongrass, girl. I'll bring lemongrass to the October
Yeah, I
lustration. I
was
think
like,
that would be really good just to throw in the campfire.
yeah.
Are
I
you
was like,
thinking
well,
what
go
I'm
ahead.
thinking?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Now, see, I have a huge rosemary plant. I bought a little rosemary plant. My roommate has a green thumb. My little rosemary plant, which was only like this big, because I bought it in at Home Depot. Not,
Hmm.
and it's only like yay big. It is now like yeah. And I'm
Huge.
telling everybody, please come over and get some. Please pinch some off because I got to get it back down again because it's
Oh,
burnt.
you can certainly bring some next time you come over.
Well, girl, I will strip that thing and bring you over some because the other night when I did ritual during the week, we had Litha and we did the burning of the anise, cinnamon, and rosemary for
Hmm.
the different properties. And I went out, I have these beautiful little jars. My altar's right in there, these little jars. This is anise,
Oh yeah.
and I have the cinnamon stick. And then I
Hmm.
have this clump of rosemary laying on the altar. And I had to preface it and explain, this is from my garden.
Oh my gosh,
And it
that's
wasn't
funny.
even dry. I literally went out and pinched it off right before. And I'm
That's
like,
so funny.
please burn, because it was so green.
Oh
But
my gosh, that's funny.
I love to cook. I'm Italian, of course, so me
Right.
cooking with rosemary is like cooking with olive oil. It's a thing you do.
Right.
And when you're using the fresh stuff, oh my gosh, it is like, mm. So I'm thinking I have to go to the nursery now and pick up some lemongrass and start planting it. Um, we
Yeah.
have they have a mosquito plant here that's supposed to repel mosquitoes, and it has a lemony scent to it, but it's not
It might.
lemongrass. It actually has leaves, but it has
Oh.
a lemony scent to the actual plant.
Well, I had mentioned citronella earlier, and I was not trying to be rude. I was looking down because I found another source. I wanted to touch on a few other things before we get to our main topic, but um, it says citronella oil is actually produced from a species of lemongrass.
There you
I
go.
had no idea. I
I
was
had
like,
no idea, really.
yeah. And then it also says lemongrass can grow up to 1.5 meters high, which, holy
A
crap,
meter is like
3 feet,
3 feet, just
right?
over 3 feet.
Yeah.
Just it's a little bit bigger than our yard. So we're
What,
talking like
what am I
almost as
thinking
tall
about?
as us. Because you and I are short.
Wait, I'm
Those who
sorry.
don't know, we're in the 5 foot club.
Yeah, hold on a second. Christ.
The citronella, but I mean, I didn't know it was made from a lemongrass. Who who would have thought? Because it doesn't really smell lemony, I don't think.
Okay, I'm not going nuts. Okay, yeah, it's a little over 3 feet. I'm like, then I started thinking about a yard and confusing myself. No, okay, so yeah, it's about,
What's it, 3.5 feet, 4 feet?
yeah, so 4.5 to 5 feet they can get. I
Okay,
mean,
so we're in the 5 foot club, so it's as tall as us.
yeah,
But you know what?
I'm before.
That would look like one of those ornamental grasses that you buy and plant in your yard. You spend a fortune for, and they're very expensive. It's an
Yeah, and
ornamental grass.
they're all over
But could
here.
you imagine planting lemongrass instead?
Mm-hmm.
That would keep
Yeah,
all the bugs down and
yeah,
have all of those wonderful qualities that you could go out there and snip some off and use it. I mean, just think about that.
I know.
My butt's going. That's it. This weekend, we're going to wherever I have to find a nursery that has it. I'll start calling tomorrow.
So another thing that I thought was cool, it says you can use it to promote, so a couple other magical things. You can use it to promote openness to new ideas or people. Um it says it's great for providing some magical help if you struggle with communication, and it's thought to attract fairies, which I thought you would
Oh,
like.
that's definitely going in my yard. Nice
Yeah.
little fairy area. I mean, that is some powerful stuff from one plant. If Western medicine could catch up to what
I know.
we had back in the day, we might actually live longer.
I know.
um, there are so many things that we've lost over the centuries because medicine took over and the pharmaceutical companies took over. But just think about the natural stuff that grows. I mean, we can plant this outside, sit outside, not have the bugs eat you alive. Because I swear to goodness, it's like
Oh, they
giving a
will.
pint of blood going outside some evenings.
I know.
Now, fortunately, where I live, we have that breeze all the time. So, but we
Mhm.
still get ate up on
Yeah,
occasion.
I know.
And I'm thinking if we put some nice planters out back with some lemongrass growing in it, it would really benefit not just our backyard, but making the iced tea and all the crap with it that we can. I mean, goodness.
Right.
I didn't realize it had that many properties.
I know. And so you can also use incense to cleanse your space. Oh, what happened? Cleanse your space as well as enhancing mental clarity, focus, and awareness. Um, and then the deities associated with it, which I didn't mention these on the other thing I was looking at, was Hermes, Diana, and Artemis. It only mentions the Greek. It didn't mention any other pantheons in this source.
Well,
Um,
you can take those and
yeah, and kind
pull them
of
across.
so right. And then the crystals associated with it are zoltanite, which Miranda's probably heard of. I've not heard of that, so I'll have to look that up. Turquoise and celestine. So I thought that was
Well,
interesting.
we
So
have
that
Miranda.
is lemongrass.
We have Miranda on speed dial, so we can just, and
Yeah.
that's our.
Oh, really quickly though, historically, it was used for its oils. During the 17th century, it was distilled and shipped around the world as part of the perfume industry. At
How
the time, there was very little access to personal hygiene facilities, which
Florida.
meant that anyone who considered themselves of a higher class would anoint themselves with scented oils in an attempt to cover up their own smell. Lemongrass was one of the most popular scents, though few could afford it due to its high price. That is cool. Lemongrass is badass.
I'm telling you, everybody needs to grow lemongrass. And
You know,
here in Florida,
when I pick our teas, I purposely don't research a whole ton about it beforehand because I want to like be surprised like while we're recording
I know.
it.
Well, no, it makes it that much better because
It
we're
does.
all learning now. If you
Yeah,
were all knowledgeable, it wouldn't be any fun. But I
I
mean,
know.
even when we went to the herb store and we bought all those herbs, we still didn't know half of what they did until we got them home and looked them up.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So I just
I've got an overglut of herbs that I'm going to bring the next time I come down and share with my fellow pagans because I have so much I want it used before it goes bad.
yeah, exactly. Now it says it's one of the most popular medicinal plants in Brazil, and many in the Amazon regarding it's a wonderful sedative. Um, Today, India is the world's largest producer of lemongrass, harvesting and distributing around 80% of the world's supply.
Wow. I'm wondering if Deej knows about that.
Yeah, it does say
Brazil, because he's going down that way.
there's about 55 other species of grasses in the family.
Wow.
And it says it's known as a West Indian grass,
West
the most
Indian.
common form of lemongrass. It's a tropical plant which is native to island Southeast Asia, but has been introduced to many other tropical regions, including South and Central America.
Well,
So,
I know
the-
growing it here, it will survive. And we're like I'm mid Florida. You're northern Florida. I'm kind of
yeah,
mid.
I'm Northeast. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of mid Florida. So
I'm
I
like
know that
45
here,
minutes to Georgia.
yeah, you're up more north than I am. I'm a little bit more
Right.
south. But I know that here it grows well because when my boss was talking about when we were looking at what we were going to plant because he had these visions, we're going to do raised gardens out back so that we would have a little herbs and also like we were going to grow some mosquito plants and that kind of stuff because in a warehouse you do have the bay doors opening and closing consistently, so it's like every time you open it a million bugs come in, of course,
Right.
and there's nothing you can do. I mean, we have mosquitoes and flies, so at times it's very irritating.
This
Yeah.
is lemongrass. You've probably seen it around everywhere.
And not even known what it was. That
Right.
I mean, that growing in your yard looks nice.
I know. It
I
does.
mean, those what they call, the different ornamental grasses are very expensive. My goodness.
Oh yeah, they are.
Oh, you're like going, really? For grass? And it's not that kind of grass, guys. That
Right.
we wouldn't mind paying for, but this is grass, grass. But
Yeah, I mean, you can start it off in a
oh
little.
my gosh, can you imagine? Grow that in your kitchen along with your aloe.
Yep, just like anything else. But
Oh,
okay,
I am
I could
so
go on.
jealous.
I can go on and on, but we need to get to our topic.
But we need to get some lemongrass first because I mean, just the idea of all that wonderful good stuff. I mean, I'm thinking iced tea with lemongrass in it because I make iced tea in the summer and I throw lemons in it. So why don't I just throw lemongrass in it?
Yeah.
Have the same taste, but all of those wonderful, wonderful qualities and actually do something healthy for my body other than, the Twinkies that I eat. And
Mm-hmm.
if they're deep fried, they're even better. Um, you can tell where my heart is.
I still have yet to try a deep fried Twinkie, but I'm sure it would be
Oh,
like music.
like, mm,
I just feel like rainbows would come out of the sky and unicorn. I would probably be the
unicorn
person.
farts. I mean,
Yeah. Why did you say that, damn it? Now that's going to be all I think about for the rest of the show. I'm gonna be like, where can I get a deep fried
I'm a fat
Twinkie
girl
right
and no
now?
good food.
I know. I'm gonna be like, where can I get a deep fried Twinkie right now? And I just lost 8 pounds. I don't need that right. I don't need that in my life.
My son used to joke about, mom knew all the comfort foods, because
Yeah.
if certain almost every culture is surrounded by food,
Yeah.
and food is more than just sustenance. It is
Yeah.
actually who you are.
Mhm.
And my son used to always joke about never trust a skinny chef and stuff like that because his mom was a big girl.
Right.
So
Right.
he always used to joke about that. And he's like, yeah, my mom knows the best food around. Look how big she is. Thank you, son, I think. And those
I know
backhanded compliments are always the best.
they
But
are.
yeah, I'm a big, comfort food person. I was just telling you I made gnocchi over the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had to have my comfort food. But our main topic tonight is an interesting topic. We have 4th of July. Yay! Our independence. And that brings up a lot of questions for a lot of people because my mom became, as she calls it, a natural citizen. Um, the word naturalized does not translate, just to let y'all know. In most languages, it will not translate. So, what translates is natural. So, my mother was a natural citizen. Um, After a while, you just learn not to correct them anymore. And you just like go, oh,
Right.
God, is she doing that again?
It
Um,
is contradictory, but that's okay.
yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it does because,
Right.
as I've said before, words do not translate. But
Exactly.
she became an American citizen at the time, back in the day, when you had to give up your citizenship to another country. So she gave up her dual citizenship to become an American citizen, which was kind of pretty awesome. And that involved a lot of different things. You had to be here so long, you had to take a test, and she probably knows more about the Constitution than most Americans did.
Yep.
But we were founded on religious freedom. And a lot of people don't understand that when the Puritans, pilgrims, whatever you want to call them, came over, they left England because at the time they felt England was a little too risque in their moral laws.
Mhm.
So they left to start a country where they would be very, very strict. Now, out of that came the pilgrims who came to America and started. From that, there were a couple different religious groups that have come and gone since then. One of them was the Shakers, and you'll see Shaker furniture, and it's usually around Pennsylvania, Maryland. It's along the eastern seaboard, and it's called Shaker furniture. And you might see it advertised in different magazines and such. The Shakers were actually a religious group, and their claim to fame, there was two things that they were famous for. One, they did not believe in sex. They would come together at their Sunday meetings and they would literally shake to release any sexual tension and energy that they had. They were also the first people who took in orphans. And up
Oh,
until 1940s, all the orphanages were run by the Shakers. And in the
Mhm.
1940s was when the American government came in and started taking over the orphanages. So when that happened, they kind of died out since they didn't have sex and didn't procreate. Their thing
Right.
was to take the children that were already here and
Right.
care for them. So I mean that's a really big thing when you think
That
about.
yeah, that's good. I feel bad about my thumbs down.
But I mean, they just didn't believe in sex. So
Yeah.
Shakers, they actually went out and shaked. So when you look at why we were founded because people wanted to be free. Now, let me preface this because a lot of Americans do not understand that when a king takes over a country, when a new king is brought in and comes in, he can bring in whatever religion he wants. And at that point, whatever was practiced prior to that is no longer allowed. So, dependent upon what your king was how your country was treated. And the last country to actually accept Catholicism was Lithuania in the 1700s. And King Mundingus, and I know I slaughtered that really well, and I'll hear about that tomorrow at work because my boss is Lithuanian. So he would say, "You did it wrong again." Um, he came in the 1700s and brought Catholicism to Lithuania, and that was the last European country to accept anything other than paganism. So they still have little villages that still, just like everywhere else, they have people that still practice. But when they came to America, it was religious freedom. And the country was founded on the fact that we could practice whatever we want as long as it didn't in any way injure or, make any bad moves towards any other religion. And Thomas Jefferson and all of the founding fathers, most of them did not use the Bible to swear on. They used other works of literature because they did not want the Bible associated with the government, therefore, the separation of church and state. And what people have a hard time understanding, and if you've never been in a European country and been told your religion is no longer associated with that country and you can't practice it anymore, we've got all the goods on that. We practice whatever we want to practice. The question has come up many times because Wicca, witchcraft, paganism was never really accepted in America until after 1973 when the first pagan group went in and became a 501c3. That is the blessing, as we call it, by the federal government to allow you to exist. That is your nonprofit status, and it's a nonprofit religion. So, whether you want to believe it or not, because a lot of pagans are like, oh, we don't have a religion, we have a spiritual path. No, you actually have a religion, dude, because that's how it works here. So, with that came a lot of unusual things that happened. Because, first of all, you have to explain that yes, you are a real religion, and yes, you really do have rights. Um, my oldest was born in the 70s. I'm going to leave it at that because people are doing the math now.
Oh,
Um,
stop it.
and
Everyone loves you.
I know it's just funny when I say my age, people just look at me like, really?
That's a
But when she was going to school, there was no way to do this because it was so new.
right.
It wasn't, they weren't sure what to do with it. The Aquarian Tabernacle and Circle Sanctuary were one of the first couple of groups. They were the first two groups to really gain um, acceptance. Now, the Witches' Council of 1974 came together and they gave us a proclamation of guess how many laws? 13. Woohoo! Um, that was done this. That was done specifically for that. But it comes to pass is what are your religious rights in America? Now we're celebrating the 4th of July, which is the freedom of our country. And that country was built on the freedom of religion. That was the whole reason these people left England was because they were tired of being prosecuted. They were tired of being treated like crap. They got on their little boats and they sailed their butts over here. Now, granted, a lot of them came over to see how much money they could make and to see how much they could steal, barter, and whatever else. But the premise was religious freedom.
Right.
So when you start talking about that, what is actual religious freedom? I'm going to hit on a couple of I guess, high interest notes. Number one, if you are clergy, and that means if you are ordained clergy, and that could be from any religious path, most of the times you're only going to be accepted if your ordination comes from a 501c3. And
Mhm.
that's because you've already proven to the federal government that you are a religion. So you've already got a proven path so that you say, oh, yeah, I'm a 501c3. You know, they granted me this, so I'm clergy. The Catholic Church has a 501c3. So that puts you on the same foot level with any minister or priest in any major religion if you are ordained by a 501c3. And the reason that is important is because it's already a proven. You've
Mhm.
proved it already. So it's no problem. The Corellians are a 501c3. You see it on all of our paperwork because everybody goes, well, what does that mean? That means that we went through the steps and all the accounting. And let me tell you, that accounting is a freaking nightmare.
Mm.
Go through all of the accounting and all of the laws, and you prove who you are. Once you prove it, you're granted that. Now, there are rules and regulations every year that you have to follow in order to keep your 501c3.
Mhm.
So when the Correllian tradition says we need your temple reports, your shrine reports, and all that good stuff, it's not because they need them. They need them for the government, so the government keeps our 501c3. So for all of you guys out there that have temples, proto temples, shrines, and all of that other good stuff that we have,
Order.
the reason behind those reports is to keep us in the good because we
Yeah.
want to make sure we keep that. Now, what does that mean to you as an individual? If you're clergy ordained and you are in a state and you need to prove your ordination, that's what you do.
Right.
You have your ordination papers. Now we still give those out if you need them. If you don't need them, some states don't require them, some do. So if you're in a state that requires them, please get in contact with somebody in the Correllian tradition, and they can help you get your ordination papers if you need them to prove who you are. But that allows you to do marriages and funerals and wickenings. I'm going to head on that for a minute. Do you know what a wickening is? Most
Yes.
people don't. A wickening is a baptism.
Yep.
It's the same
Exactly.
thing. And did you know that if you fill out the forms correctly, and Lord Don has made some awesome, awesome forms. I mean, they're beautiful. They're hand drawn, and God, they'll take your breath away. If you use those could actually be used just like any baptismal papers to get your child enrolled in school.
Mhm. Yep.
So,
Exactly.
as clergy filling those out, I encourage everyone who is an ordained minister in the tradition, go to your state, find out what is needed for you to make sure that when you fill out the paperwork that it is acceptable.
Right.
Because weddings are one thing, funerals are another, wickenings are another. So
Right.
you have to make sure you have all your ducks in a row.
Hmm.
Now, as a mom, as a parent, what does that mean? That means I can pull my kids out on their religious holidays. Is there a problem? There can be.
Right.
You have to, one, prove that that's who you are because you could claim to be Jewish and taking your kids out for, you know, Purim or something.
Right.
You have to make sure this is where it becomes a decision. Is this going to be your life path? Or is this just a fun thing that you want to do? Or are you going to indoctrinate your children? As a mom, grandmom, and great grandmom, I'm proud to say I have 4 generations of witches. My children could not be pulled out except for the youngest because until that point in time, it was not accepted. And
Right.
it was such an effort to have it happen. Now, with my granddaughters, my daughter could pull them out for their holidays and say, ah, excuse me, 501c3, hello. And
Mm-hmm.
you can pull them out for the holidays. The problem is you have to make sure that that's the religion that you claim, either
Right.
Wiccan, pagan, witch, however you want to describe yourself. You need to make sure that you have a 501c3 behind you. The Correllian tradition is a 501c3. So when you go to the hospital, you do not claim to be whatever. I normally put on my hospital records pagan because that kind of leaves it open because they get confused after that. Because most people are not aware. Let's be honest, they're not. Now they are more aware in the last couple of years because we've had Charmed, we've had the new Bewitched, we've had the new
Right.
Charmed, all of this good stuff. When you go to the hospital and you write that on your paperwork, that means if you are in need of a priest or priestess to come in and see you and visit you, you need to make them aware of that. You also need to make them aware of who in the area can come see you because not every group has chaplains. I served as a chaplain in Maryland for many years with 3 different hospitals as pagan clergy.
Right.
Also served as clergy for Fort Meade. So I did military clergy. You have to make it very clear to the hospital who you are. The best story I have is I put on my little thing, Pagan, and they sent this little girl into me. We used to call them candy stripers. They're not called that anymore, but it's the same thing. And
Yeah.
she's like, do you have any dietary constrictions for your religion? I guess they'd never seen it before. And
Mm-hmm.
my mouth says good food. She writes it down, good food, and she walks out to the front. I knew when she hit the front desk because I heard the howls of laughter from
Oh
the
my.
front desk. It was said as a joke. The nurse eventually came in and was laughing and says, seriously? And I'm like, seriously?
Right.
But,
She didn't notice.
you know, but you have to remember how you claim yourself in every part of your life is who you are.
Right.
You go to the hospital, you have to claim it. On your doctor's records, you need to claim it because if it comes to an end of life situation,
Mm-hmm.
they have to know what your wishes are. And
Right.
if your children are not practicing in your faith, you have to make it very clear to the hospital this is what you want. I preface that by saying my boyfriend who passed was pagan. He was Correllian. He was a third degree. And he had one son that was Muslim and another son who was Christian. So they were like, we want, and I'm like, your father's wishes are this. So
Yeah.
you have to make it clear what you want. Once you decide in your life to do it, then your children follow suit. Now, what rights do you have at work?
So it depends on the job and it depends on your state. So you do have protections, of course, against discrimination and harassment,
That's on
but
the federal level.
that's on a federal level, absolutely. When it comes to things like days off for holidays and things like that, you can request those days off, but they have it has to not impose on business practices or it has to not affect business structure. There's all this literature that is on the
At Human Resources, legally, Human Resources cannot stop you from taking your holidays off if you 100% walk the path. You can't take Christmas off. So if they ask you to come in and work on Christmas because you celebrate Yule, your butt has to go in and work on Christmas. Federal law states you cannot take off more holidays than what your chosen path is. If you are Jewish, you can take off for Hanukkah, you cannot take off for Christmas.
Right, but we're talking about two different things. So I'm looking here at the EEOC.gov. So this is the US Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is what we're talking about, the federal website.
Mhm.
And this is where I'm pulling it from. This has to do with religious discrimination and work situations. So, it says the law forbids discrimination when it comes to any aspect of employment, including hiring, firing, job, pay, job assignments, promotions, layoff, training, fringe benefits, and other term or condition of employment. Now, of course, you have the at will states, which are a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
Um, it is illegal to harass a person because of his or her religion. Harassment can include, for example, offensive remarks about a person's religious beliefs or practices. Although the law doesn't prohibit simple teasing, offhand comments, or isolated incidences that aren't very serious, harassment is illegal when it is so frequent or severe that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment, or when it results in an adverse employment decision, such as the victim being fired or demoted.
Now, that means if someone comes in at Halloween and makes the remark that you're the local witch, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But if they come in daily and bring a broom in every day and show you, oh, is this your way to go home?
Right.
That's harassment.
Exactly.
Now, you can take your days off. This is an excellent, excellent. I remember, in fact, I wish every pagan had this on their
I
bookshelf.
gotta get that. It's in my wish list.
It
I gotta get
is a phenomenal, phenomenal book. And we actually, our group has access to the author.
it. Mm-hmm.
I'm just putting it out there. It's called Pagans in the Law. It's by Dana Eilers. And I'm going to hold it up so you can see the author. And it's called Pagans in the Law. And federally, you can take off for your holidays. Now, how does that work? You put in for those holidays off, just like any Jew would put in for a holiday off that's not a Christian holiday. But the flip side is they can ask you to work those Christian holidays. I worked at the Baltimore Jewish Times. They gave us the Jewish holidays off, obviously, because the shop shut down. Now, when it came to my holidays, I had a choice. I could take those off too. It was offered to me with pay depending upon how many I needed to take. Now, this is when you got to make your decision. 90% of our rituals happen at night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they do not happen at midnight. They usually happen around 8 or 9 o'clock. So you're usually home by 10 or 11, so you can get up and go to work the next morning.
Right.
There are certain holidays that you might want to spend a little bit longer at, such as Samhain, which is our biggest major holiday. You may want to take the next day off because Samhain can be a very draining experience for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do that, you need to let your employer know, not the day before. You
Yeah.
need to give them at least 2 weeks' notice. I need this day off for a holiday ritual. Now, it depends on where you work, how well that's going to be taken. You have to make the decision if you're going to fight it. Okay. And if you're going to,
Right. The only thing that protects you, what I was trying to talk about earlier, was it's the religious discrimination and reasonable accommodation. It says the law requires an employer or other covered entity to reasonably accommodate an employee's religious beliefs or practices unless doing so would cause more than a minimal burden on the operations of the employer's business. This means an employer may be required to make reasonable adjustments to the work environment that will allow an employee to practice his or her religion. Example of some common religious accommodations include flexible scheduling, voluntary shift substitutions or swaps, job reassignments, and modifications to workplace policies or practices.
now,
And then
if
it's
you're Muslim, you need to pray 5 times a day.
mhm,
They have to allow you an area where you can lay down your prayer rug, kneel, and do your prayers
right.
at those times of the day. Would it in any way impact an employer? It can. because
Right.
you're away from your desk for whatever period of time it takes you to say your prayers. So there is an impact. Is your employer able to do that? If you're really small operations, like two or three people, that might not happen.
Right.
Just like, days off or someone getting sick. If you're in a small shop, now, most of my jobs over the last 45, 50 years have been with small companies. I don't like corporate. I'll tell you that now. I don't like corporate. I don't fit well.
Yeah.
But
See,
I've worked,
I've been with corporate
and you've
since
been with corporate
this
forever. So I've worked a little small mom and pop shop. So if
corporate
I
is a whole another ball game.
right, and if I look at it and think, well, my boss can do without me for a couple of hours, the day after Samhain, November 1st, I'll say, hey, I'm coming. I would tell him ahead of time, I'm coming in half a day. So I'll
Yeah.
come in about noon because I'm going to be up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning doing ritual or
Right.
getting together after
For
ritual.
the energy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm
Well,
saying,
and it
getting
says,
myself together. So I would
yeah.
take half a day and come in. Would it impact my employer? Yeah, because we're a small shop.
Right.
Is it inconceivable? No. If I
Right.
call in sick for the whole day, you know, can they dock your pay? No.
It says, unless it would be an undue hardship on the employer's operation of its business, an employer must reasonably accommodate an employee's religious beliefs or practices. This applies not only to schedule changes or leave for religious observances, but also to such things as dress or grooming practices that an employee has for religious reasons. And of course, we know that. Now, with corporate jobs, what they consider accommodating schedule changes or leave for religious observance is using vacation or sick time or personal days, which you have to schedule vacation and it has to be available. And of course, to schedule a personal or a sick day, you would have to have that available. So if you're out of sick time, you're SOL.
And most
Um,
employers, even if it's corporate, if you tell them it's for a religious day, they'll schedule you off. You can also recoup that day because a lot of them will not mark it as a vacation day or a day off. A lot of them do understand. Um,
Not in corporate.
well, some corporates do because I know that IBM does.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they've run into too many lawsuits. They're really good about letting you off. Um,
And
you've got to remember too, you can't come up to the boss at the last second and say, "Oh, by the way, I need tomorrow off. We got ritual tonight. I'm not going to make it in."
yeah, of
Really?
course not. Don't
Right.
expect that's ridiculous. Yeah.
And that's
No.
what happens with a lot of pagans. And then they
Mm,
get angry and like, well, you won't let me off, religious freedom, and they go on this whole
yeah, no, you
cycle.
cannot do that, people. You need to like do like a month ahead of time. You know when your Sabbats are, they don't change. They're about the same time
Right.
every year. It says now just to follow up on this because I do want to go over a couple other things about like the military and things like that. Um, It says an employer does not have to accommodate an employee's religious beliefs or practices if doing so would cause undue hardship to the employer. An accommodation may cause undue hardship if it is costly, compromises workplace safety, decreases workplace efficiency, infringes on the rights of other employees, or requires other employees to do more work than their share of potentially hazardous or burdensome work.
Now, when you talk to your employer, you do not have to discuss at the interview whether or not you're
No.
religious. You're not allowed to ask age, religion, family, or any of that stuff. I have interviews all the time. That's what I've done for 40 years. But after someone is hired, if they say, I need this date and this date and this date off for the year because those are my religious holidays, it's really difficult for an employer to say you can't have it because it impacts them. You being out sick impacts them. If you have three people in a business and one person's out, yeah, you're impacted. You don't have a choice because It takes three to run the shop, and you got two out.
Right.
Um, if you make it way ahead of time and you explain it's a religious observance, educate your employer. Don't go on the defense immediately. Go in and
Yeah.
proactively educate your employer and let your employer know very nicely, these are my holidays. Is it okay if I come in a little bit late on this day because I will be up late this night celebrating this holiday? And I use Samhain because Samhain is usually one of our biggest, that's our high holy day.
Oh yeah.
To me, Samhain is it. So I've had many employers over the years, and usually I've been able to say, look, November 1st, I'm going to come in half a day. I'll come in at
Yeah.
noon. That gives me time to do my thing, wind down and try and ground and center. Yeah, that is not happening. Grounding and center at Samhain does not
Right.
happen. But
I know the energy is always crazy.
it's
I
insane.
mean, it's crazy good, but like, it's
Yeah,
all,
but it's
yeah.
insane. So you go in at noon rather than 8 o'clock or whatever time you normally go in. And your employer more than likely doesn't have a problem if you don't go in there aggressively fighting for it. You just
Yeah,
say,
most times they're just not educated. I mean, so don't be and going back to the school thing. Your kid is probably going to be the first pagan kid that teacher's ever come across. And maybe not, but in a lot of cases they
most of
are.
the time, yes,
So,
they are.
yeah, so just, don't be a jerk. And if you do feel like you're being harassed or discriminated, always document things. That's
And
always
talk.
important.
Find out if you're being harassed or if it's just ignorance on the part of the person. My son went to a school, an all boys school, and Samhain, like I said, is always off the charts for us. So, I said, well, he's not coming in on this day for religious observation. And they're like, oh, what do you do? And we're like, and I educated them. And it was funny because the year before, when they had done they do a round of different religions, they had never included paganism. And my son was the first one to pipe up and go, you forgot the pagans.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that
son.
was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
no,
know.
it was not because my butt got
I know
drawn.
you had to get called.
I
At
always
least
got calls
that
from the
story.
school for my son. He was one of those kids. But it was okay. And then you educate them and don't go in, guns blazing. I went in dressed in a suit because that's how I dress for work. I sat
Mhm.
down, I had a discussion, and I was very open. And once they heard what it was, they were like, "Oh, okay." Well, I said he's only going to miss that day. I mean, because we're up very late that night celebrating, and I really don't think it's a good idea to try and get him up and bring him in when he's going to be miserable.
Right.
And they were like,
Not
"Oh,
going to
okay."
focus anyway.
And once I got through all that, they were like, and he went to an Episcopalian school, so I'm going to
Yeah.
put that out there. They were like, "Oh, well, we weren't expecting that." Number
Yeah.
one.
Right.
Number two, they were like, okay, well, this is, I said, if you have to put him down as a day absent, just give me the work that he needs to finish that day, send it home the day before.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that the homework gets done just like you would at any other time.
Right.
You have to remember, you can't go in there with an attitude. You can't go in there as pagan and proud. You go in there as a parent
Hmm.
trying to, raise your child the way you want to. Please, when you go to your employer, you don't go in and beg for, I mean, if you're Muslim, you go in and you tell your employer, I have to pray 5 times a day at these times, whatever it is. I
Hmm.
need an area where I can lay my prayer rug down and kneel and say my prayer. Most employers are like, okay, would this, would the conference room do for that? And they're like, yeah, okay, well, if we have to move you from the conference room if we're using it, would this room
Right.
work? I mean, most employers are very accommodating if it's understood what it is. Most
Hmm.
employers, first of all, they get very offensive. And I only say that because as an accountant in small companies, I'm usually HR. I
Right.
get offended when you come in saying, I demand. You don't demand when you walk in my office. That's a whole nother thing we're going to talk about. But if you
Yeah.
come in and say, okay, I'm of this faith, I need this observation. And we're like, okay, what can we do to make it happen?
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is lose an employee over something this stupid. The
Right.
other thing is, I don't want the lawsuit that goes with it, but I need to keep this employee workable. And workable means that they'll come back the next day. So
Right.
you want to give them a consideration. I'm not going to give you the moon and that back again because you're not going to tell me you need the Jewish holidays, the Christian holidays, and the pagan holidays off, because I'm going to stop you right there. Because I had
Right.
one guy try he thought he was pagan, thought he was pagan. That was the whole thing. He didn't realize I was. And he came into the office and said, well, I need to have off. And I think it was Litha or Lamas, one or the other. It was summertime because I remember it was hot. And
Mhm.
he's like, I have to have that off. And I'm like, and for? He goes, well, that's my holiday. I'm like, explain it to me. Here, me being, 100% pagan, I already knew what it was. But he couldn't explain it. He couldn't tell me what it was. It
Yeah.
was something he saw on the internet. And
Uh,
I'm like, well, what path are you affiliated with? And then he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, what's your path? Are you Druid, pagan, Buddhist, And
effective.
right there, I had him because he had no idea. And he looked at me. He says, why are you questioning me? I said, because I need to know what path you are in order to know what holiday you need off. And he's like,
Yeah.
how do you know about that? I guess he didn't bother to look at my arm. I usually wear a watch, but my arm has a wonderful little tattoo on it, which is a cauldron with the triple goddess on it. And I was
Right.
like, explain this to me. Now,
Right.
that being said, if you come in legitimately, and you don't have to give all that information, if you come into your employer and you fill out your PTOs, which is your personal time off sheets, and you put down their religious observance, and you
Hmm.
put a date or whatever it is on there, I might question what's it called just because I'm curious as hell. I want to know what it is. Um, and okay, do you need the whole day or part of the day or the day before? Now, if you're Jewish and you work retail, you need Friday to Saturday off. So you know that going into the game.
Right.
If you're Muslim, you know you need your 5 times to pray time off. If you're pagan, you know what holidays you need off. Now, you don't need every full moon, every dark moon, and every Sabbath. Let's be honest, guys.
Right.
You go into an employer.
Within reason, people. Within reason.
Within reason. If you walk into an employer and you work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, they're going to look at you and go, really? You can do that on the weekend?
Right.
Which is true because 90% of our rituals are rolled into the weekend so that
Mhm.
we can all participate. So
Right.
keep those thoughts in mind. But you do have a legitimate beef if your boss does not let you have off for that. And you have to know the reason why. If he says, if if you work at Halloween spirit stores and you want Halloween off, come on,
Right.
reality check.
Yeah.
You ain't
Plus,
gonna get
like
it.
a seasonal gig anyway. So if you're working there to work during those
And
hours.
come on, it's retail, and that's your biggest sale day of the year. Come
Right.
on.
Because a ton of people are buying last minute things. So before we have to wrap up here, I don't want to get hung up on just the work stuff, although it's very important. You can also go to Lady Liberty League, I believe it is. It's headed by Selena Fox with Circle Sanctuary, and they do a lot of things. That there's a lot of good information out there. Um,
There are lots of different things, such as if you want a green funeral, you have to find the state that allows it. Pagans are now big into green funerals. The only one
mhm.
I know of that allows it is the state of Maryland. You do not have
Yeah.
to have formaldehyde. You can have a green funeral. You
Maine,
have
I
to
think you can
remember,
have Viking funerals now in Maine.
yeah, where's it at?
Maine,
Name? I think some of the Great Lakes states are looking at that also.
yeah.
But
But also, I wanted to touch on some history. So, In 1985, as a result of Detmer versus Landon, the District Court of Virginia ruled that Wicca is a legally recognized religion and is afforded all the benefits accorded to it by law. This was affirmed a year later by Judge John D. Butzner, Jr. of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Um, and nevertheless, it was just saying Wiccans are sometimes still stigmatized in America, and many remain secretive about their beliefs. So we understand you want to be secretive of, and a lot of people are not out, especially being in the South, and a lot of people don't wear their pentacles at work and stuff. I never used to. I do now. I don't care. Um, and and I've never been questioned about it. And some people are curious, and I talk to them about it, and it's fine.
The
Um,
easiest way to go for a job interview is to have something like this on your arm.
Right, exactly.
Doesn't work well,
No,
um,
yeah.
unless your boss is Lithuanian.
And then to piggyback on what you were saying, in 1985, conservative legislators in the United States introduced three pieces of legislation designed to take away the tax exempt status of Wiccans. The first one was House Resolution 3389, introduced September 19th. 1985, Congressman Robert S. Walker, which would have amended to the United States Internal Revenue Code that any organization which promotes witchcraft would not be exempt from taxation. On the other side of Congress, Senator Jesse Helms added Amendment 705, the Treasury, Postal, and General Government Appropriations Bill for 1986, which similarly stated that organizations promoting witchcraft would not be eligible for tax exempt status. After being ignored for a time, it was attached to H.R. 3036 by unanimous voice vote of the senators. And then it just goes on to basically say, um,
It got shot down.
yeah, it says in, let's see, but I wanted to fast forward because there's still so much that goes on. But
It's
that's
a
just
lot
the
of work
history.
to
That was a, if you look up Detmer versus Landon, that was a very big landmark case with Wicca being recognized as, by the government on a federal level as a,
and it was recognized in the 70s on a government level with the first 501c3. And that's
right.
what a lot of people don't understand, that we are recognized and that we are federally
And you
protected.
have rights. So it says in, so the story is, and going back to you, I think you said you did prison chaplaincy
Yes, I
too,
did.
right? Yeah.
Yes, they have to allow
So
us in.
yeah, so 1985, Virginia prisoner Herbert Daniel Detmer, and this is the landmark case I was talking about, sued Robert Landon, the director of the Virginia Department of Corrections, in federal court to get access to objects he claimed were necessary for his Wiccan religious practice. The district court for the Eastern District of Virginia decided in Detmer's favor, although on appeal, um, they ruled that while Wicca was a religion, he was not being discriminated against. This case marked the first legal recognition of Wicca as a religion.
And some of the things he asked for are illegal in the prisons. He wanted an athame.
Yeah,
Excuse me, you want a knife in a prison?
right,
Hello. Um,
right,
and a wand, which also could be turned into a weapon. I mean, you
right.
have to understand what is. Now, I did prison ministry for quite a number of years with Rysam Ministries.
Hmm.
And we were allowed in federal and state penitentiaries to give comfort to the inmates in our religious capacity. I did a number of those in the state of Maryland. Now, I can go in and I can provide the service. Now, you've got to understand there are certain things that they are not allowed to have.
Right,
One of
of
them is
course.
a knife. I don't care what you call it, athame, bowline, or whatever. It's a knife.
Right,
It's a weapon. He was wanting an athame. He was wanting a wand. He was wanting all kinds of stuff. Now you have to understand that in many times in many of the prisons, even the Jewish prisoners have an issue because some of the things they want cannot be provided to them because of what is limited in the prisons.
Right.
Okay, so it's a whole nother ball of wax when you ask for what you need and you ask for what you get. In the
Exactly.
military, I did Fort Meade. There are pagan chaplains. We got in Arlington, yoo-hoo, we went and fought that battle. We can have the pentacle on the grave sites at Arlington. That was a major, major fight that went through the court system because they told us we were not a recognized religion. Excuse me, we were recognized in the 70s.
Yeah.
We fought it, we won.
Hmm.
So, in your certain cemetery, now, this is where the problem comes in. If you have a Christian cemetery, first of all, why would you want to be buried there? But I understand if your family's there and all that. I get it.
Right.
You want a pentacle. You have to make sure that you're allowed to do that because they have certain rules and regulations. You cannot go beyond their rules. If they say you can't have anything standing, like my dad is buried, they can only have the plaques that set into the ground. They
Hmm.
can't have anything above the ground because
Yeah.
when the mowers come across, they just take everything. Okay, so I couldn't put a big heart on his
Yeah.
cemetery plot because they don't allow it. So they wouldn't care if it was Christian, Jewish, or whatever. You can't
Right.
have it. Don't go in asking for something you know you can't have. If they have the gravestones or headstones or whatever you want to call them, then yes, you can have one. Now, what are their requirements? Do they have to be this size by this size? And they give you requirements for a reason. It's usually because of the upkeep, what it costs to upkeep it. Like the raised headstones they told us where my father was buried were not conducive because nobody there had them, and then that way they could just run the lawnmowers over top of things and keep things down. If I wanted him to have a headstone, I had to bury him in this other place. Now my father was Christian, so okay, there was no problem. Now if you're going to sit there and argue that being pagan, you're in the wrong
Right. Exactly.
because you have to
Um,
follow the rules everybody else follows. But
yeah.
if you're denied what everybody else is, then you have a gripe.
Right.
Um,
And it wasn't that, I mean, and we're still fighting. If you look at, I wanted to touch on some of the military aspects, being, military brats. Um, it wasn't that long ago that we were just able to get the pinnacle on the veteran headstones.
yes, that's
And um, so to lead into that really quickly before we wrap up here, U.S. Army Chaplain Captain Don Larson was dismissed from his post in Iraq in 2006 after changing his religious affiliation from Pentecostal Christianity to Wicca and applying to become the first Wiccan military chaplain. His potential new endorser, the Sacred Well Congregation, based in Texas, was not yet an officially recognized endorsement organization for the military. And upon hearing of his conversion, his prior endorser, the Chaplaincy of Full Gospel Churches, immediately revoked its endorsement. At this point, the U.S. Army was required to dismiss him from chaplaincy despite an exemplary service record.
now that's the same thing as going from Pentecostal to Catholicism. He would have had the
Mhm.
same thing happen. Why? Because he violated the rules. The rules said you come in as Pentecostal, you stay Pentecostal. He changed in midstream. Even if he had went to Catholicism, which we know is accepted in the military, my God, he would
Yep.
have still run into the same problem.
Yep.
Now,
And
he was going
that's
with a group that wasn't a 501c3.
and he said it said prior to 2007, the United States Department of Veterans Affairs (VA) did not allow the use of the pentacle as an approved emblem of belief on headstones and markers in military cemeteries. This policy was changed in April 2007 to settle a lawsuit, which was Patrick
Shalina
Stewart.
Fox,
Yep, and for
I'll
Patrick
give her
Stewart,
credit. Yes, she
yes.
fought it with the
And
ACLU, and believe it or not, there were Corellians on board with that one.
Yep, and it was I think 11 families that were several years.
Yes,
Traveled
it
a lot.
was originally Patrick Stewart was the head person that they
The
had,
head
but
person,
there
yeah.
was a wife of one of the. If you're married to military and they get buried at Arlington, you also have the right to be buried at Arlington if your career. She was pagan. He was not. He had the cross. Jan, and I can't.
Yeah,
Oh, I feel
I
so
think
bad. I can't
I
remember her
think
name.
I have the I
It
think
was Jan something. I really feel bad. I can't remember it. But she was denied at first, but then they ultimately, when they did Patrick Stewart, they did hers also. So she
yeah,
also,
I had it earlier. I
yeah,
don't
I
have it
can't
right now.
remember. I know it was Jan
She
because
waited nine
9
years.
years
She
because
was
she had
buried
he had the
without a
cross
doctor.
and she had to
Yeah.
wait to get the pentacle.
And I
So
read it. It was 9 years. She was buried 9 years next to him. He had the cross, and it was 9 years that
before
she
she
had
got the
nothing before she got the pinnacle.
right, but once it was clarified and done, then
There was a
everybody.
ritual.
Now, when you go into the military, you can say you're pagan. You will get the pentacle on your dog tags. You will get the pentacle on your grave at Arlington if you're career military. If you only serve your one tour, um, you don't get it. As far as other cemeteries are concerned, you have to look at the cemetery itself. And
They're
I'm
pri-
not being
right.
smart.
They're privately owned.
If you're in a private cemetery that is strictly Jewish, you are not going to get a crucifix on your
Right.
headstone. You're not going to get a cross on your headstone because it's
And
all
it's crazy that I read they had like the Unitarian Universalist chalice, they had 16 variations of the cross,
Jewish.
but up until 2007 they didn't have a pinnacle. I'm
And
still waiting for the damn pinnacle emoji under the religious emojis. There's
yeah,
still not a damn pinnacle.
there's
Um,
no, we're working on that one. We're fighting that one. But as a parent, as an adult, and as a civic leader, you have to decide what your battles are. And this
right,
is my biggest crutch tonight. If it becomes a battle, if it becomes to the point where you need to say this is wrong and you need to make sure that you followed everything, just as if you were, say, Catholic in a Jewish organization or Jewish in a Catholic organization. The reason I use those two terms is because everybody understands those two terms and they understand the vast majority of people under those two terms.
right.
Then you need an attorney. Actually, Ellers, and I know I'm saying his name wrong. I swear I know I am. I just know it. Ellers. Um, you can go to the ACLU and they will pro bono look at you and see whether or not you have a case and whether or not they're going to take it on. That's what Selena Fox did. It was Selena Fox, Sanctuary, Circle, along with the ACLU, put
Yeah,
in a
Circle
lawsuit.
Sanctuary.
Circle
Yeah,
Sanctuary.
Circle. Yeah.
And
And then also something I didn't know too that I wanted to touch on that I didn't realize the VA also added the Hammer of Thor
yes,
to
ma'am.
the list of the emblems in May of 2013. I did not know that.
They're adding more and more as more and more come up. Now they're
Yeah.
not going to add everybody's. Like I doubt if you see a Corellium up there. I really do.
Oh,
But
but how cool would that be?
that's a thought.
That would,
That's a thought. But you have to understand that they're going to do major symbols. The pentacle
right.
was the major
Pantheons. They're
symbol.
going to do pantheons, right?
Once we got the pentacle in and we got okayed, then that opened the door for many of the other symbols to come in. But you have to pick your battles, and what your battle is, you have to make sure you followed the rules and you understand the rules. Like I said, you can't be working in an all Jewish organization and say, I want all the Jewish holidays off and the Catholic holidays off. That does not work.
Right.
You have to, if you're going to ask, you have to give. I've worked Christmas more times than I can tell you because I don't celebrate it. I celebrate Yule. My kids celebrated Yule. So if I worked for the Jewish Times, yeah, I went in on Christmas and did an 8 hour day like I always do.
Not an option for me. We're closed.
Some
federal
businesses
holiday.
are closed, and that's what you've got to look at too.
Oh,
If your business is physically closed on those days, when you ask for other days off, you have to see how it's going to impact your business. If
right.
you're retail, Yule is out of the question
Yeah,
because
usually.
Yule is 4 days before Christmas. It is
Hmm.
not going to happen. If
Yeah,
you're not retail and you work in the business sector, you might be able to get that day off. How important is it to you? You have to be willing to concede, okay, I'll take this day, but I'll work this day. So
right,
if you want Samhain off bad enough, it's usually not around too many holidays. You can usually slide that one by. If you want Yule, you better be willing to work Christmas because that is not your holiday. So
right,
you have to decide what it is you want. And I know it's a tough decision, but you need to sit down now. If this is your chosen path and you want to make this your chosen path, then you need to sit down and decide what holidays do you absolutely need off. Remember, most of our stuff happens at night, happens on the weekend, just like the Christians and the Jews. So,
yeah,
what days do you really and truly need off? I guarantee you the day after Samhain is a day you might want to really consider.
yeah.
November 1st is a day off because let's face it.
My two main ones I try to do are Samhain and Yule, like the day after Samhain and Yule.
Yeah, the day after Samhain, I usually almost always take a half a day because I'm usually up late or I'm usually out at Jacksonville and I have to drive 4 hours home. So sometimes I'm driving home and going to work. But you have to decide and you have to understand if you make that stance, you're going to be required something else. Any of the Jews who want their Jewish holidays off have to be willing to work the Christian holidays and vice versa. I worked at the Jewish Times. Now, we were very fortunate. At that time, our publisher let us off for the Jewish holidays and the Christian holidays. Now, my holiday, the only one I really needed off was a half a day the day after Samhain. And my boss was like, take the whole day.
Sure.
So I was very fortunate at that time because I worked for a religious organization who understood religious holidays. He says, "What about the rest of your holidays?" I said, "Really? They happen on the weekend or in the evening, and I'm able to get home in a decent enough time to go to sleep and come to work." I said, "But that one's a hard one to get away with because Samhain is it's not so much the ceremonies and the rituals, it's the after effect that you have to
Right.
wind down from.
And it's so much energy,
It
absolutely.
is. It is crazy. So I
Um,
said, I need a half a day. And he's like, take the whole day. And I was gifted that.
right.
Now, if I had to work one of the Christian holidays or one of the Jewish holidays, it was not a big deal. I got my holiday off. But he could not require me to work 4 or 5 other holidays for my one day off. I worked one day.
Yeah.
Now, he
One
just
thing I wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
he just would let me have the whole day off and just that was it.
Right.
And you
So
said,
it's just one reason. I just wanted to wrap up here. But I wanted to, so basically the point is we do still go through discrimination, and there's nothing wrong with standing up for ourselves. There's just a couple quick examples. Early as 2019, Pauline Hoffman sued St. Bonaventure University, which is in Allegheny, New York, after she allegedly was forced to resign as dean due to her religion. Um,
St. Boniface, so it's Catholic. I'm guessing by the name.
I think Bonaventure. I'm just saying it how
Bonaventure is a Catholic saint.
I that yeah. That's I mean I figured Saint. It's but she was a Wiccan professor. Um, and yeah, and again in 2019, a man was arrested in Tennessee. I think it was Grand Forks. Um, oh, in 2018, I think. Um, for trying to stab a woman because she was a witch and he had to slay her. So, I mean, there's crazies. We still go through discrimination, especially being in the South. People think that we're evil, devil worshiping baby
I've
eaters.
had no discrimination in the 6 years I've lived here.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had much, but it happens
I
where,
had more up north than I've
yeah,
had down here. And I don't know if it's, and I mean, I have tattoos, I wear the shirts. I mean, you
it
can't
could
see
also be
my
where
arm.
you live too, because you're like on the beachy sort of
Right.
side.
But I lived in Baltimore and I had a ton that I had to deal with. And it was vicious. I mean, absolutely, where people were out to get me. You have
Mhm.
to understand, if you follow the rules and you do everything you're supposed to and you have a problem, there are recourses for that. Human resources has to respect your religion. If they don't, you go down. Don't go down with guns blazing. Go down, paperwork in hand. I'm doing
Yeah,
a
document everything.
501c3. Here it is. Give them the information, educate them. This is a perfect time. You might be the only pagan they've ever met. How are they going to walk away from this meeting? I've
Right.
always gone in a
Don't
little timid.
don't be a detriment to the community. Be an advocate.
Yeah, don't kill us before we get there. But go
Right.
in, educate them, make sure you have your facts in line. The I tell you, I had someone come in who was quote unquote a Satanist. I actually have worked with them before. And he went on and on about stuff. And I said, dude, I don't know who you studied under, but you have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, you're just discriminatory. Hon, I'm not discriminatory. Did you notice the tattoo on my arm? I'm a pagan. And
Right.
I'm telling you, you're full of it. So you need to take a walk or you need to reevaluate your life. Don't come on with stuff you can't back up. If you're part of a 501c3, bring that paperwork in. It's very simple. If you don't have it, call the head of your organization. Say, I need something on letterhead that says I'm part of you guys.
Yeah.
It's
And
required.
it's not and it's a case by case basis because not everyone is a part of a tradition or a 501c3, and a lot of you are solitaire eclectic, and we're talking more along the lines of like if you're having to go to court and legalities wise,
The legal system
fighting
is
anything.
already set up against us. I've been
Right.
in custody cases. I've been called in as the minister in custody cases. I've sat on that witness stand and I've had to prove that I was a pagan minister. I mean, good grief.
Yeah.
But in the same token, you can't go off posing. You
Right.
have to be careful what you say. If you're solitary, it's going to be 10 times harder to prove. That's one of the advantages of being with a group. A disadvantage is you can't do your own thing all the time. So you have to weigh your pros and cons before you go in. Go in as probably the only pagan these people are ever going to see in their lifetime. How are you going to leave them? If you leave them with, like, wow, she was really educated, she knew her stuff, and yeah, we
Yeah.
had to give it to her because she was legitimate. Or is it going to be, man, she was way out of line, she was out of control, she couldn't deal with it, I'm not dealing with this person. I've
Right.
had both people come to me as
Yeah.
human resources. And I will tell you, I listen, but because I am pagan, I have that advantage of knowing if you're throwing me a lot of hay or if you're
Right.
throwing me a lot of real stuff.
Right.
Make sure you have your ducks in a row. If you have to go to the school, most of the time you just pull your kid out. You don't worry about it. You don't have to say anything. Ah, they were out this day, religious observance, to send the note in, no big deal.
Right.
If your kid is going to, my kids went to Catholic or Episcopalian schools because in Maryland they were the best education. I had to be real careful when I pulled them out because I had to decide which of the holidays that I really felt like they could miss a day of school on. Like any parent, you got to weigh the situation. Don't go in with, well, I'm pagan. They're going to have off every full moon, every new moon. No, 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 no. Come on, let's be real
Yeah.
about this.
Think about it.
You
So
have to
that
go in
was
intelligently. The biggest problem we have as pagans is for a very, very long time back in the day, pagans were the dregs of society. only the people who were outcasts. They failed out of every other religion. They failed in their life. Now they're pagan. That's kind of how we were saw, because that's kind of how where a lot of us were. So you have to, you know, now we have doctors, lawyers, psychiatrists. We have all of these, I don't know, I guess, learned people who are now part of this group, who you can come out and say, well, hey, I'm not the only one. Back in the day, the only people who were pagan were either the dregs of society or those that were on the outskirts, because you were considered weird or whatever. It's more open today. Pick your battles, decide what you're going to do. If you just want your kid to celebrate, I don't know, Lammas is coming up, you want to celebrate Lammas, you want him to miss a day of school, he was out for religious observance, send it in. See what they say. If they call you on it, then you go in and talk about it. They'll probably put it in as an excused absence. No big deal. He does the work, you're over it.
Yeah. And we understand people needing to, if you're still in the situation where you're in the broom closet and you need to stay in the, we totally get that. But if you're, otherwise, I'm to the point where I'm like, let that witch flag fly.
Yeah. And seriously, if you're in any kind of situation where it comes to custody and that sort of thing, really listen to your attorney and tell your
Yes.
attorney how you feel, because
Well, you
that's
can
where,
look up, there was quite a few cases about that when I was
oh,
researching.
yeah, I got
About
called
the
in.
mom being Wiccan and a witch, and yeah, there was quite a few. So you guys can Google those, um,
But
but yeah,
you've got to decide, what is your battle going to be today. I got called in on a child custody case as the minister, and it was like, ooh, poo. Now,
yeah,
this is the one thing I'm going to caution you about. If you're called in, you have to dress the part, which means, yeah, you get to wear these wonderful little clerics with the little collars. Yeah.
hmm
Um, you also have to present yourself and your credentials. If you don't have your credentials, don't present yourself.
right,
Because on a witness stand, I was absolutely amazed at the questions they asked me. 90% of them had nothing to do with my faith path, but had to do with me as a person. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're not putting me on trial here.
hmm
You're deciding custody. And it got to the point where I actually had to say to the judge, what are we deciding in the court? Because
right,
I got confused. But
right,
you have to make sure you understand, if you feel you've been discriminated, if you feel that there's a true need, the ACLU is there to help you. Circle Sanctuary is there to help you. Um,
Liberty,
Dana is
yeah,
there to help you. But you have to have a legitimate case, and you
yes,
had to follow the rules. 90% of these cases, and I'm going to tell you flat out, are not able to be, fought or stood up against because you didn't follow the rules.
right,
It's real simple. Just like anybody else in the world, you're given a rule book. When you step outside of that, you're not covered. If you follow the rules and you do everything you're supposed to do, then you have a problem, then you have an issue you can take up with. But if you don't follow the rules, it's not going to happen. It's
yeah,
very important for you to make sure. And I know that sometimes we're pagans are a little hot headed, and we're a little, I don't know, how can we say, enthusiastic
yeah,
is a nice
that's a
way of
good one,
putting it. Pagan and proud and loud. You have to take it down a notch. You have to come into the situation as you would as if you were Catholic, Jewish, or Christian.
right,
If you come in under that guise and you come in prepared and you come in, I'm not saying you have to drag yourself on the floor and be humble. I'm saying you've got to come in prepared, and you have to understand the questions they're going to ask. They're asking legitimate questions. If it gets beyond that, then that's when you say, excuse me, I need to get an attorney. And that's
right,
when you go somewhere else. But don't make these impossible demands. They need full moon, dark moon, and all the Sabbaths off. Really?
yeah, yeah.
Get a grip.
So, yeah. So that's basically what we wanted to touch on tonight. We thought that was important, but Pagans and the Law, I'm going to have to get that book. There was also another one that I saw that was similar. I think if you search Pagans and the Law, you'll see, I think it was a related book that was recommended that I'm going to have to look up.
There's
But
one recommended on the back. It's called Practical Pagan.
oh, okay,
Did I get
cool.
that up there?
Yeah.
Um,
This this had to do it was another law book, but so I'll have to make sure that I get that and read that because that's
yeah,
interesting.
many books are coming out now because
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of us now, and we're
Absolutely.
actually coming out of the closet. Oh my! And so there's more and more books. This is the first one. This gives you a basic understanding, and they go over some of the cases, and they go over a bunch of different things so that you have enough variety that if you feel you have a problem, then you know where to go the next step. But
Right.
again, you have to make sure you are following the rules first. And I
Right.
can't emphasize that enough because I've heard so many pagans say, well, this, and it. Well, did you do this? No. Did you do
Right.
this? Well, no. Well, where did you follow the rules? Well, I don't. Yeah, you do have to, just like everybody else. In the workplace, whoever puts in to get off, regardless, it's seniority. Do you have the time to get off? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
it all depends on right,
like
like we said.
everybody else if
Yep.
you put in
Just
for
like
a day off.
yeah, just like we said before, it's just gonna depend, on your state, on your job. It's so many different factors. So just look and see what it is, within reason. Don't do it the night before,
Right.
like we
And I
said.
think your generation is the first one to really experience a lot more openness than my generation. So it's like you guys need to educate yourself.
Mhm.
Everything, I can't believe it. Everything is now on the internet. That is like, oh, you guys don't understand. Before the internet, we had to actually go into libraries and try and find this crap.
Oh,
Um,
wait.
you can really now get into it and go and move on from there. So I really encourage you all to look in your state legislatures and look at your state, see what your state allows and not allows. If you feel you've been discriminated against, if you feel you really have a case, the best test is the ACLU.
Yeah.
If you fly, you fly. If you don't, you'll know why.
There you go.
I mean, there's no other way to say it. So, guys, if you want to do it, if you want to make that stand, but make sure you follow the rules when you do it, just like everybody else. You're not exempt from any of the rules just because you're pagan.
Exactly. And I wanted to go over. So we did not have a winner again this week, unfortunately. No, what's going on, you guys? I always, and we have comments going, and I'm not getting emails. So we gotta, come on. If there's something else you guys want, if you're not into the mugs, you gotta let us know. But that's what we got for now. We're trying to get those mugs out first. So email the keyword this week is going to be freedom. Freedom is the keyword of the week. Email thyme@gmail.com, THYMEMC@gmail.com. Go to our Facebook page, Tea Time with Mother and Crone, and our YouTube channel. All you have to do is like and subscribe. If we have multiple entries, we'll put you on the spinny wheel and draw randomly, and we'll announce the winner on next week's show.
Yep.
And as always, it's fun.
And we get them out that week. I think everybody's got their mugs so far.
Yep, everyone has their mugs so far. I still
Oh,
have to get
and
Fluffy's address.
you got your mug. I want to see a picture. Just
Oh,
it doesn't
yes.
even have to be your face. It can be like this.
Oh, yeah, that would even be funny if we just did these things.
Just these things so you can guess who we are. Obviously, I have my
It would
shirt
be kind
on.
of fun to start a game like that. But
We
then
should.
just post them on our Facebook page. And if you want to say like what state you're in, that would be kind of cool to see where you're from. You don't have to. And like I said, you don't have to have your face if you want to do like a picture of, next to a book or
And
whatever.
also, if you have something that you want to know about, such as pagans in the law, or there's a topic that you felt has not been covered in depth and you want some more information, please jump on our Facebook page and let us know because we'll research it. We research
Absolutely.
everything. Um,
Yes. If
and
there's a tea, if there's an herb or a tea, we've done several requests and we will do them.
we'll get it all together, but let us know. Otherwise, we don't know. And then we go on with these. classes and nobody likes them.
Yeah.
So we'll be putting out our July schedule coming up. We're going to sit down and figure out what we're going to talk about in July. So if you
Yeah.
have a subject that you want to hear about in July or August or even September, which really isn't that far away, shoot us a line or two and say, I'd like to know more about. July's coming up. Our next holiday would be Lammas, and you want to say the Celtic word. I think.
Lunasa.
Thank you.
Lunasa.
It's loaf mass because the Catholic Church still blesses there's certain churches that still do the blessings of the bread if you bring it in. That
Mhm.
weekend, believe it or not, St. Elizabeth Hungary in Baltimore still does it. So if we're going to be doing a little bit on that coming up later in the next couple shows, but if there's something more you want to know or anything, any question you have, it can be. Don't worry about how silly it is because your question is something somebody else won't ask.
Exactly. And this week's little affirmation quote thingy from my tea is, it is the light in the lantern which shows you the path, not the lantern.
Oh.
So I thought that was good.
That's an interesting thought. So keep that in mind. We'll see you all next week. Um, who knows what we're going to talk about next week? It'll come to us sometime during the week.
Yes.
So don't forget, Virtual Circle is this week with the Strawberry Full Moon, which has an interesting story behind it. If you show up for Virtual Circle and Strawberry Moon, you're going to hear a cute little story behind that one.
And it may have passed by the time you see this, which will be
No,
Sunday.
not till like, yeah, our ritual doesn't start till like 9 o'clock. But if you're watching us now, you'll
If you're
see
watching us now on Wednesday,
it's
yep,
Thursday night. And if not, you can always catch us on the loop at
on the
YouTube.
replay. Yep, YouTube, it's Virtual Circle.
And
Um,
where are we at? Because I can
you're
never.
on Facebook. There's also a Facebook group for Virtual Circle.
No, I
So,
mean for our group. If you want to get our shows, you go on Tea Time at any
oh
of
yeah,
the venues
I already went through that. Tea Time with Mother and Crone
and
on
YouTube.
Facebook. And then YouTube is also Tea Time with Mother and Crone. And you can like and subscribe and do the little bell to get notifications when we're doing this live on Wednesday or
And
Thursday.
catch us there, and we'll see you all on the next show. Blessed be, and y'all have a great week.
All right, blessed be.